Hey, this is Life with Sean Renee here, back with another video. Like, comment, subscribe. More videos on the way. I'm period. This video is called Tragedy Set In. Let's watch the video.
He says he has a surprise for them, and then he goes and grabs a hatchet. This has to be one of the saddest cases I've ever looked into, an absolutely horrific tragedy. Technically an unsolved case, but I'm pretty sure we all know what happened, and at the center of all of it is this evil SOB. People compare him to Chris Watts, but he's like the Chris Watts before Chris Watts. Josh Powell did not have a good childhood. His dad, Steven, was really abusive, and his dad would show him like inappropriate movies when he was a little boy, and I know you know what I mean. Josh was very unwell and angry when he was a little boy, and at one point he actually tried to attack his mom with a butcher knife just because she asked him to do the dishes. Josh met Susan through the Mormon church. The two of them quickly got married. It was very fast. Then the two of them moved to Utah, where they had two sons, Charlie and Braden, and it really seemed like they had this beautiful, happy, perfect life and family. Susan would confide in her friends that her husband Josh was very controlling and abusive. He was very threatening any single time she said that she wanted to leave him. They were also in a terrible financial situation, mainly because Josh was racking up a lot of debt, and then he had to file for bankruptcy. Susan records this really chilling video, like she knew something bad was gonna happen, where she walks around her house kind of showing off all of their belongings.
This is me, July 29th, 2008. It is 12:33 Mountain Time. Covering all my bases, making sure that if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented. Hope everything works out and we're all happy and live happily ever after as much as that's possible.
Very sad to watch that tape, knowing what ultimately ends up happening to her. Because on December 7th, 2009, Susan disappeared. That day, she never showed up to take her two sons to daycare, and since that was so odd, the daycare actually called their emergency contact, which was Josh's sister, to go see if everything was okay. When Josh's sister got to the house, she was knocking on the door, calling them, but no one was answering, so she called the police. Everyone had this gut feeling like something terrible was wrong, so they actually knocked down the door, and inside, no one was home. The entire family was missing, but Susan's phone, her purse, all her belongings were still in the house. And then probably the most chilling of it all, two large fans were pointed at the carpet and trying to dry this part of the carpet, which looked like it was recently washed. Like it was trying to dry the carpet really fast, which was so suspicious. And then Josh and his two sons just showed up, and Josh tried to claim that he had no idea that his wife was missing. Josh claimed that the night before, around midnight, he took his 4-year-old and 2-year-old son on a spontaneous camping trip, and his wife did not join them. So he's really claiming that he went on a spontaneous camping trip in the middle of the night. It was after midnight with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in December, when it was freezing cold temperatures and it's like pitch black in the Utah wilderness at night. It's freezing during the summer, but you're doing this in December, and that just so happened to be the day that your wife disappeared. There was no clue where Susan was and no evidence that linked Josh to her disappearance, but people were definitely suspicious of him, and even more suspicious after his wife Susan was only missing for 1 month. Josh just packed up with his sons and moved all the way to Washington to go live with his dad, Steven. This is so bizarre. Your wife has been missing for only a couple weeks and you're moving states with her children. Don't you think you'd want to be there in case your wife comes home, or maybe help in the search to find her? Josh Powell was already guilty in the court of public opinion, and then him and his father Steven started to say some really disgusting things about Susan in the media, just absolutely running her name through the dirt. Josh's dad, Steven, even tried to claim that Susan would come on to him, which absolutely was not true, because Susan would tell everyone that she actually got the creeps from her husband's father, and for good reason. Susan's two sons, who were only 4 and 2 years old when she disappeared, started to say some really disturbing things. Charlie would just blatantly say that his mother was dead, and then Braden drew a family photo which had him, his brother, and his dad in their family minivan, and when someone asked him where his mom was, he said that mommy was in the trunk. The police actually did a search on the home that Josh was living in with his sons and his dad, and the police found some really, really disturbing things. Very, very, very creepy. Josh's dad had over 4,000 photos of Susan that were taken like without her realizing. The police also confiscated 3 computers, and I don't even want to know what they found on them, but afterwards, Josh's dad, Steven, was arrested for having like bad photos of children, as well as for watching someone without their permission. He served 7 years in prison for this, was released in 2017, and then passed away in 2018. But afterwards, Charlie and Brayden were removed from Josh's custody and put in the custody of Susan's parents. Josh was offered supervised visitation if he agreed to move out of his father's home, which ended up being a terrible, tragic mistake. Josh did end up making that move. He moved out of his dad's house, got his own place, but Josh was not happy with supervised visitation. He wanted full custody of his kids, but Josh was denied full custody after a court hearing where they found that Josh was drawing some disturbing cartoons. Don't even want to know what those were. It was recommended that Josh get an evaluation, but in the meantime, he was still allowed to have supervised visits of his 2 sons with a caseworker present. But after that court hearing, Josh started to plan something terrible. He bought a bunch of gasoline, he donated all of his son's toys to a thrift store, and then he sent goodbye and apology emails to all of his family members. On February 5th, 2012, Josh had a scheduled visit with his 2 sons, but reportedly, Charlie and Brayden did not want to go to their dad's house that day, but they had to. A caseworker named Elizabeth picked the 2 boys up from Susan's parents' house and drove them to their father's house. And when they got there, the 2 boys just hopped out of the car and they ran up to their dad. But before the caseworker could catch up to them, Josh slammed the door in her face and locked it. Caseworker Elizabeth starts freaking out. She says that she never had anything like this happen to her ever. She's knocking on the door, she's begging Josh to open it, and then she hears Josh say, "Charlie, I have a big surprise for you." And then afterwards, she said she could hear the boys crying and screaming. And we now know that's because their father, Josh, was attacking them with a hatchet. Caseworker Elizabeth then starts to smell an overwhelming smell of gasoline, so she goes and she calls 911, and I have to say, the 911 operator on this call makes me so mad. He sounds like such a jerk. He sounds annoyed that Elizabeth is even calling. Elizabeth is telling the 911 operator that she's really scared for these 2 young boys' lives, and she's asking, when are the police gonna get here? And the 911 operator, in like a really gross tone, tells her that he doesn't know, and they're gonna respond to emergency and life-threatening situations first. This is someone that doesn't have custody of children, and they've locked themselves away with these children. The children are crying and screaming, you don't know why, and now you smell gasoline and you don't think that's an emergency. But tragically, it would just be too late, because then Josh's house exploded. It burst into flames and there were no survivors. Josh passed away, but so did 7-year-old Charlie and 5-year-old Brayden. Hatred I feel for Josh is unbelievable. I don't think I've actually hated anyone so badly. He's such a coward. Like, what a pathetic excuse for a man. Like, if you want to go out like that and you want to do that, fine, whatever. I don't care. You probably killed your wife. But to take the boys' lives that way too, it makes me actually so sick. Every single time I hear about this case, I start to cry. Every single time. And to this day, Susan Powell has never been found, but it is believed strongly that her husband Josh took her life as well. And if you watched the end of this, thank you so much for listening to Susan, Brayden, and Charlie's stories. It means the world to me that you guys have been here at all. Love you guys so much. I hope I'm here with you guys tomorrow. But if I'm not, I hope you guys have been looking at this.
It's crazy how a family member, a father, can take a life, unalive the wife supposedly and the kids. And like, he must have been like sick in the head to think that it's okay to do that. He must have been in deep thoughts, in a dark place. It's crazy. Now, what do y'all think about this video? You know what to do. Comment below. This is Life with Shauna Renee. And I'm out. Bye.